Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today in this webinar with our great friends from Bravo as we talk about 3 ways to successfully drive Office 365 productivity in change management. And we're so excited today. In the next hour, our good friends Gino and Mark will walk you through practical tips and techniques that they've employed working with organizations on how to truly maximize the benefits of Office 365. My name is Dr. Raymond Sai. I serve as AvePoint CMO. I'm a Microsoft Regional Director and MVP, and we're so grateful for your attendance today as we walk through some of these great tips that Gino and Mark will show us. So, Gino, Mark, why don't you introduce yourself and get this session going?
Thanks, Dux. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, wherever you are. Appreciate the intro there, Dux. As you said, we've had a great relationship with AvePoint. We've been doing, providing Microsoft technology solutions to many customers, including the federal and the regulated industry and the commercial side, and we're super excited to provide some of the 3 ways for you guys to really leverage, the productivity and change management with Office 365. So, like I said, as Doug said, my name is Gino DeGregor, President and CEO of Bravo Consulting Group, and looking forward to sharing all this knowledge. Mark.
And thanks, Gino. And good morning, everyone. My name is Mark, as they both said. I am the Director of Service Delivery with Bravo Consulting Group. I'm also a cloud architect, cloud engineer, experienced in lots of different activities and work within the Microsoft Cloud, whether that be SharePoint or entire migrations. I work with a little bit of anything and everything. So I'm looking forward to talking with you guys and talk about what we can do for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. All right. So what is change management? It's different organizations understand that it's not just about turning on technology or implementing a new process. So it's really about, if you don't look at how all those technologies or processes impact the people and put a right strategy in place, there's going to be some challenges, right? Nowadays, with all these complexities in technologies and solutions, it's no longer about just turning on a site and being able to just collaborate or leverage information or post information about different things within your organization. Is really more than that, right? And I'll talk a little bit about some of the high-level features and functionality of Office 365, but in order to truly leverage the full potential of what Office 365, Microsoft 365 really brings to the table, you truly need to understand what you need to do. And today we'll talk a little bit about that and how we can leverage those things that we've done with our customers, because it's not just, again, it's not about the people per se, but it's also the folks in the organizations. They all learn differently. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how many ways we've supported our organization to help there. As I mentioned in the previous slide, change management is about working with people and making sure that change is implemented properly. But as you may know, what do people fear the most? Change, right? Essentially, they fear the unknown. I mean, is what I meant to say. So the unknown out there, they don't know. A new tool, leadership comes in and say, we're going to be using this capability, or what we've experienced with COVID essentially has, dramatically changed the environment out there, and now people are being thrown into cloud environments and turn on all these features and functionalities, and they don't know how they can leverage these tools to really be productive in their environment. So that's what we're addressing when we're looking at, from a why is change management important, is to really manage that expectation, really the resistance of users not wanting to change because they don't know what they're gonna get into. So really looking through that, understanding that what it takes to build that change management within your organization that will allow you to have the return on investment for what organizations are spending, getting to the cloud, securing the cloud, and all that stuff. So that, at the end of the day, if you have all those three things, manage, build, and capture, you will increase the productivity within your organization. And it doesn't really matter whether you're in the private sector or the public sector, it's all the same, right? At the end of the day, you want to leverage all the tools, you want to have the right processes in place to increase the productivity and really bring your organization to be more productive at the end of the day. So what is Office 365? As you guys, if you're in this webinar, you probably know what Office 365 is, but it's been around for almost more than 10 years actually, and it has evolved so much. It's an enterprise level platform at the end of the day, and it's more than just apps for Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It's Microsoft has invested so much and has built on top of that advanced security and device management. So it's no longer just about, again, deploying Office and turning on a site and here you go, they go crazy. There's so many components that people need to understand, users need to, employees need to be aware of and make sure that they're using properly. I think you guys may have seen this before. They call it the SharePoint periodic table, and as you can see, it's very daunting when you look at it. Right, there's a lot of great features and functionalities, from applications all the way to enterprise team and collaboration. So every single component that you see here definitely needs to be part of your productivity and change management approach. I know Mark will dive into some of those things and how we've been able to successfully do it for other organizations, but I just wanted to highlight here, as you're thinking about, or you probably rolled out, Office 365, you need to make sure that there's different ways of capturing all of this. So diving into the 3 ways to Office 365 productivity and change management. So the 3 areas are job aids, hands-on training, communication, and metrics. This is the 3 areas really we recommend and have experienced that with our customers to be able to successfully increase productivity. But all of that is really around the 3 areas there that you see right in the middle. It's the mission, the people, and the methods. All of that have to really come together in order to have a successful deployment and successful productivity and change management within our organization. So with that, I'll let Mark dive into some of the examples and some of the things that we're currently doing with some of our customers. Mark?
Yep, awesome. Thanks, Gino. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about what those 3 areas are and how they really work together to provide that pyramid or that triangle leading to successful adoption and change management. Talk about some examples and how we've done this at Bravo and how you can do it in your own organization. Go ahead and go next slide. So the first area I want to talk about is the job aids. Job aids are critical to user success, to enabling users to be able to regurgitate and reuse the information, to be able to really regenerate and utilize the information that you're providing for them. Key areas, things that we've learned that work well to make successful job aids. You want to keep your job aids simple but informative. You want them very detailed so that users have the information that they need, but not overly complex. You don't want to create job aids that are incredibly long, incredibly detailed, because nobody's going to read a document or page that's 10 pages long just to tell them how to do something. We want to keep them simple but detailed, and that really is the key to that. Also, make sure they're consistent. If you have a variety of job aids, make sure they have a similar look and feel so that one doesn't look different from another. Again, it's all about simplicity and reusability. Also, finally, making sure those job aids are somewhere that they're accessible, that the users can go out and find them. If they're hidden in the environment, if they have to email you to get them, they're not going to be something that they're going to go out and really track and reuse. So I'll talk about this in a little bit. We like to create a single location where all of the information works together, where it's very easy to find and really fits into something that the users are familiar with. If you or your organization has an existing repository for that type of information, use it. Don't put it in something that's completely brand new that they have to go looking for. You want to put it in a place that they can really find easily. Some examples, next slide. Some examples of the type of job aids that we've put together. So there are just a few here. This is an example we've actually used with a customer. So these are a variety of them used for Microsoft Teams. You can see how they kind of look and feel. Again, they're simple. They have the information that's easy for users to find. Nice little screenshots that show the different pieces and parts, the steps to go through and do whatever it is that they need to do. But again, keeping them short. And again, this is not just one job aid, this is several of them. I generally like to keep my job aids anywhere from 1 to 3 pages, unless it is a very detailed thing and something that you're going to expect to be a little bit longer. But as much as possible, that concept of the 1-pager is really ideal for this.
And this is good, right, Mark, as it relates to, people, there's so many features, as I mentioned, I showed the periodic table, right? Being able to just pull in something that I need, how do I, like here we have Teams, right? But essentially it's making sure you prioritize some of the features available, applications available that you're trying to roll out and kind of plan those out and have those available, right?
Exactly. Yep.
All right.
Perfect. Next slide. The second side of our triangle is the hands-on training. The job aids don't work alone. Hands-on training doesn't work alone, but hands-on training is critical as well, because hands-on training is what really enables your users. A lot of users, and one thing we've learned is that users learn different ways. What might work for one person doesn't work for everyone, and you need to figure out and be able to target as many people as possible. Hands-on training is a very strong way to do that. But when I say hands-on training, we don't like to generate or create generic hands-on training. We want training that is targeted at what users are trying to do. What is it that they do from day to day? And how can they use the cloud products, the tools of Office 365 to make their job a little bit easier? Really talking about those use cases or those real-time scenarios, making it relatable to something that they're useful so that they can leave your training and go back to their desk and actually use that the same day or the next day to make whatever it is they normally do just a little bit easier. And then the other piece that comes with that hands-on training is creating champions. If I'm a trainer, I can only do hands-on training for so many people in a given period of time. But creating a network of champions, we can designate folks throughout an entire agency or an entire organization, whether your company is very small or very large, doesn't really matter, because you create those champions and let those champions be the ambassadors to take the message, so that the people in the different offices can go to John Smith or whoever your champions are and say, John, can you help me out? Can you show me how that you did this? And let it kind of, the message will spread itself once that begins to happen. So your champions are really key to making that happen. Next slide. Oh, Gino, you're muted. There you go. Okay, excellent. All right, some benefits to hands-on training. Hands-on training are very successful, but they come with some benefits, and I want to lay some of these out and help to explain what these are. The benefits of the hands-on training, as I already mentioned, we talked about how every user learns a little bit differently. But overall, by providing hands-on training, you can decrease your problems. We know that users have a lot of the same problems that come up time and time again. If you can take your training and target on those specific problems, then you can really mitigate a lot of those problems. Cut down on your help desk calls, cut down on the tickets, cut down on those type of issues that happen time and time again. You're going to increase the efficiency of your users. Users know how to use the products, they know all the capabilities, know all the different things that can be done, and it makes them more effective and more efficient. And then the other piece there is increasing the use and the awareness of the product. Sometimes users simply aren't aware that a product can do something or that the products exist and these options are out there. So by providing this training, we can make users aware of what is out there and what they have the ability to do. Again, on the previous slide, I talked about increasing that collaboration, increasing the communication and the efficiency, but it also increases security, because if users are using the products and using them appropriately, your security of your environment increases exponentially, because you incorporate all of those tools, all of the features and all the capabilities that make it a secure environment. And then finally, we talk about the self-training through the Champions Network that I mentioned before, and modernization of technology, because as you start to train your users, teach them the latest and greatest, teach them how the tools work, what they can do. It enables them to use the latest and greatest and make their sites look, use the modern look and feel, use the latest capabilities, use those new features and capabilities, and really make your organization as modern or as up to date with technology as possible. So all of those great benefits that come from hands-on training, and then lends all together to making that adoption and change management very useful, very successful.
And Mark, real quick, I know we've been supporting several customers, but one in particular in the federal space, there are about 8,000 plus users, if I'm not mistaken. And we came in about a year ago, and we've been providing this level of adoption and change management. And interestingly enough, as soon as COVID hit, we were able to, they were able to essentially flip the switch and start leveraging all these capabilities. You talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great customer and a great situation to talk about this, because it's a large implementation of something like this. But by using that triangle, those three pieces in all together, we were able to very successfully give them the ability to take an organization that is used to working day by day at a single office, a single headquarters, and overnight, where they were able to work remotely. All of our training continued remotely, so it was all through Skype or Teams or WebEx, able able to deliver that content, and it actually allowed users to do things they didn't know was possible. It was very successful and increased the adoption of the Office 365 environment by almost 4,000%, almost overnight. Extremely useful, and really gave the users the ability to start enhancing or to using the tools that were at their fingertips that they didn't even know about. So very, very powerful, very, very useful, really allowed the organization to make the most out of their investment, because as you know, Office 365 is an investment. You spend the time and the money, and you want to make the most out of it. So by creating this adoption and change management, it allows them to be secure, it allows them to be effective and efficient, and allow them to work in the modern world that we have today, with the situation that everything is right now. And there was literally no stoppage in the capabilities, and they've continued to progress since then. So, and finally, this is, as Gino mentioned, this is a large organization. This works just as well for small organizations. It doesn't matter how big or small your company is. The processes are the same. You're going to build to scale, obviously, but the processes are exactly the same, and they work in any case. Anything you want to add to that, Gino?
No, I forgot to mention that in my slides earlier when we were showing all the features and functionalities. Microsoft has done a phenomenal job in making these apps available to many organizations, right? No matter if you're like a 2-person company or 10,000, 50,000, right? You still have the same challenge. You still got to turn those on. You still got to implement those within your workload, right? Workflow within your organization, and you have to keep that in mind. It's not just about turning it on and letting your users just leverage the technology. And it's not just about training them, but it's about the holistic approach. There's the three things that we need to make sure that we keep in mind. And then on top of that, on the next slide, Mark, you're going to talk about the communications and metric is all of that, and making sure that we are not only communicating but tracking all the improvements, the productivity and the usage and all that. So I won't steal your thunder. Go ahead, Mark.
No worries. Awesome. So thanks. So yeah, going back to that triangle, those 3 ways that we mentioned in the beginning, communications and metrics are really the third side of that ties everything together, because you can do all the job aids and you can do all the one-on-one training, but the communication and metrics really help you to identify the areas and to bring that all together and make sure that not only is your training and your job aids and information targeted in the right areas, but showing the actual growth and the use as a whole. This actually comes in 2 ways, and we've kind of put this together in one, but let's talk metrics first. Metrics are key and critical, and it's up to you what metrics you really need. But some examples, some different things that we might use metrics for are tracking the overall use of the different products. Who is using the environment? How many people are using them? What is your adoption rate? Are 50% of the people using Teams? Or 90% of the people using Teams? And if it is 50, that gives you an opportunity to say why. Why aren't other people using it? Maybe they don't know, maybe they don't like it, whatever it is, and you can adjust to that. Also understanding what is the percentage of employees that you've actually trained. If you're only training the same small group of people, then your communications aren't correct and you're not hitting the right people. So that leads into the second piece, which is the communications. By creating proper communications, figuring out what communications method work for your organization, and then creating and customizing or creating customized messaging to let them know this training is upcoming, this training is available, these job aids are out here. If you're not getting the message out, people aren't making use of it, they're not aware of it. So you want to track that as well and get that out. And then ultimately this ties together to let you address the most common issues first. As I mentioned before, take a look at your help desk. Look at where your tickets are coming from. What are users having problems with, so that you can wrap those into your training, wrap those into your job aids, and really make the most out of those. Hit the lowest hanging fruit first. Start knocking those out, and then figure out, okay, revisit that, a month, 2 months, 6 months down the road. Now what's the most common problem? Now what's not working? Where do we continue to progress? Communications and metrics are not a one-time thing. It needs to be an ongoing process to continually revisit and really hit that, identify the weaknesses, educate the users on what's available, and ultimately impacting as many people as possible.
One thing to add I was in a call this morning actually with another customer in the Department of Defense, and we helped them. We're part of the bigger puzzle, but we helped them roll out a new site on a unclass environment. And one of the leaders kind of chimed in and was asking, it's like, well, can you tell me the difference between when do we use Exchange email, when do we use Teams, when do we use SharePoint? right? It's a common question. I'm addressing the most common issues. I'm just trying to pull this an example. It's such a simple, being that it's so complex and robust enterprise environment, people don't know the stuff, right? Do I need to send an email? Do I need to upload my information? Do I share links? You know, and this is the one of the biggest thing that I hear. I mean, I think you would agree there, Mark, that is that people don't know where to put this information, and this is what one of the first areas that we look and help our customers with that.
100%, absolutely. Yep, great examples.
Cool.
All right, next slide. All right, let's tie all this together. We've talked about the three pillars, all the different things that we talked about, the job aids, the training, the communications, and the metrics, and all those lend together to create or to help structurize the mission, the people, the methods. And let's talk methods for a moment, because governance ties this all together. If you take our triangle and consider it almost like a pyramid, governance is at the top of that, because governance makes everything successful. You need something that ties all these pieces together to make all of the implementation, all of the efficiency, the productivity of all of your products in your environment really efficient and effective to support the needs of your organization. Maybe you have federal guidelines and things or policies that you need to fit. Maybe it's just internal, and that's fine as well. It doesn't matter, but governance ties it all together. There are two ways to really create governance. There's the traditional way, the way that organizations have been doing it for years and years, and we're all familiar with this, creating logical policies, creating documentation, and then hoping that people are going to follow those. But what we've seen is we know that really, in most cases, doesn't work. It's not sufficient. It does okay. You get a lot of things, but people forget about it. They don't do exactly what's supposed to be done. So there's the new way, the modern way, the better way. The software and automated process. By implementing software into your policies, into your governance, we can minimize human error, we can maximize the solutions, we can make people aware of the products, the information that's there, and really automate. Take the human piece out of it. By automating processes, all of your guidelines, all of your policies become automated, and it makes management and structure of your environment almost seamless and almost hands-off. So a great way to tie that all together to make your adoption, your change management very effective, very useful, and very powerful. I'm going to actually let Dux talk a little bit more about that. Go ahead, Gina. Did you have anything?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. No. All right. Go to the next slide. All right. So let's talk. I'm going to lend this over to Dux at this point, talking about AvePoint Cloud governance and how they actually can implement this and what the type of examples and how that works. So Dux, take it away.
Oh, thank you. And first and foremost, again, thank you for a lot of those awesome tips and real world experiences. So we just have a quick question here, and certainly we'll take other questions. So feel free to pop your question in. Any tips on helping team owners organizing channels, working to move team conversations out of a chat group and into channels? One thing, we wrote a long blog post around that. My colleague Spencer will share it on the chat. But Gino, Mark, any tips on tricks on that, like how to organize channels?
I can take that, sure. That's a question I deal with on an almost daily basis, honestly. There are a lot of ways to do that because, as you know or may know, Teams, SharePoint, and even Outlook, they all really work together, and they work together seamlessly. But even in Teams, you have the difference between Teams and channels and group chats. And they're similar, but not exactly the same. And what it really comes down to is what works best for the project or for the team or for the customer or the user. If you have a recurring meeting, you have things like that, then a simple meeting request or a group chat might be sufficient. But if you're continuously going back and collaborating on the same set of files, you have a growing file base, that begins to get into the area where you probably want teams and channels. Teams and channels are really powerful ways to, again, structurize all of your content, organize what it is that you're going to do. If you have a select group of people that work together, and they may work on a variety of projects, whether it's an office or whether it's a project, a program, whatever it is, it's the same group of people, but they have different things that they do. Now you've got a team, and within that team, you have channels to help organize, and again, to structurize all of that content, make it reusable, make it useful, and make it efficient and productive.
Awesome, awesome. All right, again, friends, if you have questions, feel free to pop it in the chat. So let me kind of pick up the conversation here. And Gino, if you don't mind, go to the next slide, or even better, if you give me control so I can click myself, that makes it easier for you. So,
okay.
A lot of organizations, as both Gino and Mark described, are embracing the Microsoft 365 platform, are embracing Teams. And the key to the success is driving sustainable adoption, and this requires change. And our job and our responsibility, especially as IT, is how do we make this easy? How do we make the transition easy? One thing I realized being a father of two, I know Gino, you're a wonderful dad as well. I remember when I took my kids bowling for the first time. By the way, this is not a picture of my son, it's a depiction of a picture of my son. I remember when I first took him bowling, he was about 5 or 6. And, you know, I taught him the basics, but I wanted for him to make it easy for him to do the right thing and make sure hit those pins and be successful. So what I did is I had those guardrails up, right? Now, think about this. I taught him academically how to play bowling. He's never done it. So, you know, he got the idea, but he's never done it. So on top of that, I want to make it easy for him to be successful, because he'll feel good if he hit those pins, and none of us feel good when it goes to the gutter. So first couple of times he did it, it was great. And then, you know, towards the end, he's like, oh, I'm a big boy now. I could do it myself, put the gutters down or put the rails down. And, you know, we did it. And what happened? It went to the gutter, and even worse, it hit the other person on the other lane. Right? So what's the moral of the story here? Moral of the story is Microsoft 365 platform is great. We teach people how to adopt, teach them how to use these wonderful tools are awesome, but we have to take it up to the next level. How do we make it easy for them to do the right thing? And how do we make it easy for them to adopt without remembering every single thing that they have to do? Oh, I have to make sure I turn this on or turn this off, or I call it this thing. Don't change permissions, right? It's just too much. And this is where the value of automating and enforcing governance is critical. So if we look at enforcing governance, so if we, let me click on, there you go, went too far back here. All right. So when we think about governance, a lot of us sometimes gets daunted with this word. It's too big of a word. It's too much. I can't do it. I don't have time. I don't have people. But in a practical sense, it can be done, and you should really think about it, because the idea of having governance in place actually helps drive adoption. It goes hand in hand. And almost a lot of us think of governance as a bad thing, it's taking control. Actually, it's not. Having governance in place is a good thing. You see, when we think about Office 365 or Teams, we need to govern 3 things, right? So Gino and I will give you practical tips here on what to do. So don't get overwhelmed that, oh, governance is big. Really focus on 3 key things. The first area is, how do you govern the creation and the provisioning of these workspaces or teams, right? So as you get started with deploying this platform, for example, you know, certainly you're using Teams for calls and chats, but then when you start using Teams for collaboration, the ability to create these teams, the question now becomes, do you enable self-service? Or maybe as you get started, you let IT do it. Well, that can cause a bottleneck. Maybe there's a middle ground here where you have a process where after people are trained, they can do self-service, etc. So point being is, what's your governance around provisioning? And we'll talk about some examples in a second. The second area of governance we have to think about and consider is, how do you govern the ongoing management and use of these workspaces? How do you govern and make sure people do the right thing when they're a team owner, for example? So let's say Gino creates a team for a project. He's a team owner, and you know, he's new to Teams. How do I make sure he doesn't randomly enable or invite people that are external, or he decides that he's going to create a bunch of SharePoint subsites off of the SharePoint site that gets created, or maybe change people's permission on that SharePoint site inadvertently, right? So how's availability and compliance around using that team or SharePoint site is managed over time. So how do we enforce those things and make it easy for people to use it? The last piece of governance is in the area of information lifecycle. What happens to the SharePoint site, or what happens to the team once it's done? Let's say the project is done. Where does it go? So Gino, way back when we're working on SharePoint on premises, once the SharePoint site's not being used, what happens?
Yeah, it gets deleted, right? Or gets
What's that?
archived. It gets archived, right?
Ideally, it's archived,
right?
but come on, tell me the truth.
Yeah.
What happens in real life?
Just they're left alone, you know.
Yeah, it just sits there. Well, in some cases, maybe okay, but in this day and age, especially if you're working in the US government space, there are records retention requirements. There are policies around no longer than 5 years, or Sarbanes-Oxley says that financial related data can only be kept for 7 years, right? So ideally, there should be governance around when is it archived, when is it deleted, when is it backed up. And while all these governance policies or governance framework is great, but how do you keep up with it? The last thing you want is to do all these things manually, right? Where, oh, now I have to think about how to provision all these things. Do I call IT, or how do I do that? Or what about governing the use of teams? If somebody accidentally changes permissions or invites external people, or certain data gets exposed, you don't want to be reactive and fix it after the fact. And then also the information lifecycle. You don't want to start archiving once you get some kind of audit that you didn't pass. So the key measure to success is really the ability to automate it, which I'll show you in a second. And then in addition, if you can really zoom in and address the business needs of different groups and organizations as well. While certainly, you know, in the typical organization, we have the same Office 365 tenant, but we know that it's not a one-size-fits-all type of governance, meaning certain departments may need external sharing, and certain departments cannot have it. So in this example, right, the next level of governance is once you identify what you want to do with provisioning, ongoing management, and information lifecycle, is now you zoom in to the business needs of key stakeholders. Like, for example, Department A, it could be HR or legal, where external sharing is not allowed, retention 6 months after last access, only IT can create Teams or SharePoint sites, and recertification happens after 3 months. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, Department C, so let's say they're the procurement team, sure, they could do external sharing because they're working with vendors, expiration 9 months after last access, and allow them to do self-service. Only 3 people could do it, by the way, Joe, Sally, and Harold, and then recertification is 12 months. So now what you're seeing is we want to make it easy for people to do the right thing. So if Gino from HR creates a team, the system already knows Gino's from HR. So all these policies and governance rules would be automatically applied. So Gino doesn't have to think, oh, I got to turn off external sharing, or, oh, I got to make sure I do my recertification after 3 months, right? It's going to be a way where it's automated. The business or the user themselves don't have to deal with it. In IT, don't have to deal with it as well, because on the back end, all these things are just kicking in, and certainly it's audited. Now, how is this done? This is done through our technology called AvePoint Cloud Governance. It's a cloud-based technology, and it really takes all of your policies, and I'll show this to you in a second, and you put all the policies in there, from provisioning to management to information lifecycle, depending who you are, what you're doing, and all these rules will kick in behind the scenes. It's like those guardrails on the bowling alley, right? It makes it easy for people to do the right thing. And beyond that, right, we certainly, these are just some of the screenshots, and later I'll go to my demo environment, I'll show this to you. So beyond that, certainly there's situations where you may be new and you may not know what policies to put in there. No problem. We work with so many organizations around the world. Like, we have a lot of built-in policies in here already that you can use out of the box, or you can customize it for your organization. The other capability and technology we offer is a technology called MyHub. MyHub is an app in Microsoft Teams, and MyHub allows you to easily organize not just Teams, but all the workspaces you have. And we talk about adoption, right? We want to make it easy for people to do the right thing. One of the feedback we get from customers all the time is this: well, Teams is great, but then I'm part of a bunch of other SharePoint sites, or I'm part of a bunch of Office 365 groups. The challenge in Office 365 today is there's no one-stop shop that shows all of that. I have to go to Teams to see all my Teams. I have to go to SharePoint to see all my SharePoint sites. I have to go to Outlook Web Access to see all my Office 365 groups. With MyHub, it's an app that gets installed in Teams. Obviously, you got to have a consent and permission from your Office 365 admin. And once it's installed, not only makes it easy for you to organize and centralize all the workspaces, but everything you do in Teams is simpler. From creating and requesting new teams to being able to manage all your workspaces. So with that, let me go ahead and show a demo and kind of walk you through some of the things I just discussed here. So let me make sure we're seeing the right screen here. Gino, which screen are you seeing? Are you seeing my demo?
The beach mountains.
Oh, the beach and mountains.
Yeah, that's nice.
Clearly, that's where my mind is at, right? Let me pick the right screen here. All right. Oops.
You guys can, if I can interject just really quickly, I do see a couple questions that are coming in the chat. Yeah. All fantastic questions. We'll table those just for a couple minutes here. We'll get through another section, and they're great questions. We'll make sure to address those here very shortly. Thanks.
All right, so perfect. So now I hope, are you seeing my...
we can see it now. Yep.
All right, so friends, here's what I did. I logged into AvePoint Cloud Governance. I really want to show you two quick things. Earlier, I mentioned with AvePoint Cloud Governance, you can put all the policies in here to automate the enforcement of governance for provisioning, management, information lifecycle. So I can set up, for example, different services. So let's say I want to set up a team service. I can give it a name, and I can even define if it's external sharing related, all that good stuff. So I can go through this different, so let's just say my new request, I'll say HR governance for teams, right? So I can create a new service, and this is specific to HR. I can even put limits on the size. Would I enable external sharing? Next. And then, would you like to enable lifecycle management? Sure. So I can start defining all these things, which is great, and even define for approval process. So in the interest of time, so you get what I'm showing here, and then I just want to show you quickly some of the services that I've created for at least this environment. So for example, let's say create a restricted team service. So it's going to pull up that service, and it's going to show me all the different policies and things that I can do and not do. So I just want to highlight it. So here, right? So we can see what the service is about, allow all users to use this service, who can do it, who's the service contact, etc. So you could do this not just for Teams, but certainly you could do this for any Microsoft 365 workspace, Teams, SharePoint, Yammer, all that good stuff. So this is cloud governance. Now, what about MyHub? So this is my Teams environment. And by the way, you don't have to have, MyHub and cloud governance. They can work independently from each other. But if you have both, they work hand in hand too. So one of the examples I have, so this is Teams, and I've downloaded MyHub, which is an app, and I've installed it in my Teams environment. At least our whole company has it. So when I go to MyHub, I see a couple things. First and foremost, I can look at all the workspaces that I have. Again, it's not just seeing all my teams. I could see all my SharePoint site. I could see, all my different groups, etc. And then, if I have cloud governance in my company, I can make a request. So, for example, I want to create a private team and say this is for HR onboarding. I can create a team from a template. Listen, this is really powerful because what we can do now, in the spirit of adoption and making it easy for people to do the right thing, instead of creating a team from scratch, what if you have a pre-built team with all the channels, all the tabs, all the documents, and all the policies around it? So if somebody from HR requests it, not only will they create a full-blown team that they can use for onboarding, but it also knows that external sharing is not allowed. It's going to recertify after 3 months, so on and so forth. So this is a great combination, cloud governance, MyHub, especially in the interest of driving adoption and making it easy for people to do the right thing. So, I'm grateful for colleagues and friends like Gino and Mark and Bravo Consulting, who's not only helping organizations reap the benefits of their Microsoft investment, but truly enabling them with solutions like ours to drive adoption for their Teams and Office 365 platform. So with that, thank you, Gino. Thank you, Mark. And let's tackle some of the questions we have here.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. That's great and great points there. I'm not sure if am I still sharing my screen or not?
Yep, you have the presentation back up. Thanks, Gino.
Perfect. All right.
So let me just go through the questions really quickly. I can just read these, and then we can figure out who's going to be the best to answer these. First question I see: I get many emails a day when documents are shared. We have not been able to deploy SharePoint properly yet, so documents are uploaded by users and links are emailed or shares are sent to others. This causes a lot of email traffic and cluttered email boxes. Your suggestion?
I can take that. In fact, I want to show an example because, boy, we've experienced the exact same thing way back. And then after I show this, I think it'll help provide more context. And then certainly, Gino and Mark, feel free to jump into that if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me share my screen because I'm sure this is not just you. This is a lot of folks that have and are still experiencing this. Give me 1 second here. I'm just trying to pull up a relevant example here. Okay, let me try this again. Are you seeing my screen yet? Not yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, here we go. All right. So let me show my screen. Are you seeing Teams?
That is your desktop.
Yes. Is it Teams or?
No.
It's just your background right now.
Okay, my background again. Okay, hold on. Okay, there you go. So we should see that, right?
There you go.
Okay. So Teams came out about 2-3 years ago now. And prior to that, I'm sure just like you, so I'm with the marketing organization here at AvePoint. We're a team of about 55 people around the world. We use tons of tools. We use email to communicate. We have a SharePoint site for all of our documents. We use Jira. We use Adobe. We have file. We have everything that you have right now. So when Teams came out and when I saw the potential of Teams, I'm like, wow, this is just going to change how we work. Because Teams, true to what Microsoft is saying, this will be my one-stop shop as a team to get our work done. Just like how Outlook is our one-stop shop for our emails and calendar, Teams can serve that purpose without context switching and jumping in different apps and dealing with all these emails, right? But I also realized I can't just flip the switch in a day, right? So from an adoption perspective, how do I make it easy for people to do the right thing? So the first thing we did in our team, collectively, we said, you know what? All these emails, especially group emails going back and forth and attachment, all that, that's the first thing we want to solve. So we as a team, we committed to this. If we have an urge to communicate and collaborate via email within a group of people, 2 or more, we're going to stop doing that. It didn't happen overnight, but we committed, myself and my colleagues included, that moving forward, if we have group communication collaboration, we are going to do it in a team conversation, not a chat. We created a team for marketing. We're going to do it in conversation. So this is what it looks like. So for example, my colleague Spencer, posted an announcement or a conversation. There's a new webinar, Delegating Administration. These people are speaking. Here's a link to the registration page. And can the following that are tagged help with distribution promotion? Megan do this, Sarah do that, Brent do this, etc. FYI, Michael, Chisa, Joanne, whatnot. So if I pause here, if you look at this message, it just looks like just any regular email. It has a subject line, it has a message, it calls out people. If this was an email, what would have happened, Gino?
Yeah, people will click and go somewhere, right?
Right, but then in the normal fashion with all these different people in the email with some announcement, Mark, well, what's the next scenario here?
You've sent the same email to a lot of different people. They get it forwarded around, it gets changed, it gets edited,
and then people start talking, reply all, and then it forks out. Maybe if there's a document attached, this is the question that the person just posted. But now, since we're not doing that, what happened here? First things first, for people that are tagged, right? Some of them may have questions. So some of them said, Martina said, hey, Annie, Ava, let's do this. Spencer's like, yeah, great idea, let's do it. New update. So now it's in a more organized, threaded way of catching up with this piece of information. And then second, for folks that are tagged, FYI, so it's kind of like CC, yeah, people responded. Sure, like. So it's a confirmation and acknowledgement that we got it, right? Yeah. And here's the key thing, friends. If you want adoption to happen, you can't just keep throwing new stuff onto people. You got to take things away. So we, as a team, we committed moving forward, this is how we're going to communicate and collaborate as a group. And speaking of documents, right, the links being shared, yeah, if Spencer had a document here, he would just pop it and literally drag and drop it into this conversation thread. So we're working off of the same sheet of music. It took us about 3-4 weeks because it's hard to break the habit of, anytime we want to talk to a bunch of people, we just fire up an email, right? So it took about 3-4 weeks, but boy, soon after that, this is how our team communicates and collaborates. Now, I'm not saying email went away. Any type of one-to-one conversation, email is fine. And here's the other important point about this. Every time we have a new colleague that joins marketing, think about onboarding. I don't have to forward 10,000 emails. Oh, let me forward this to you, read this. No, just go to the AvePoint marketing team and read everything you can. People will get onboarded faster. You talk about knowledge management and knowledge transfer, much easier because other than the conversation is there, all the other pieces that we use, documents, all the different tools, for example. So here, right? So this is our marketing team, and look at all the conversations that we have here. All of our files are here. All of our requests. Essentially, this is a custom workflow, comes here. I have a tab for internet, that one-stop shop. Yammer's here. Jira is here. Power BI is here. So think about that. These tabs are different tools and apps, but it's all consolidated into a one-stop shop. So we live and breathe and work off of our team. So hopefully, I know it's a long-winded way to answer this, but I think showing this to you visually, you kind of get the picture on how this can truly make you much more efficient and effective.
Thanks, Dux. I'll jump on top of that just a little bit more. Yeah. So the short version of that really is use the tools that you have, right? Because we're all familiar. Email's been around for tens of years, and people have been using it, and everyone uses it different ways. We have other ways. I know you mentioned that you've been unable to deploy SharePoint properly, and SharePoint is one option for creating shared storage locations. Teams is another. The real answer is use the tools, create shared locations. Now, I'm not saying create file shares. We all know file shares are become a mess very, very quickly, but use the tools that you have, whether that's Office 365 or whatever cloud products you're using. Use the tools that you have, create those shared locations, and educate your users on using those tools and what's available. And then that really will help to cut down on that email traffic, cut down on the email, on all of that. Create consolidated locations to communicate and to store that content. So that's my short version of that. Hopefully that adds a little bit to that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we got a couple other questions here. Do you think the recent shift to remote work presents a great opportunity to drive adoption change management?
So I can jump on this one. This is a great question, and absolutely 100%. I think it's a great time. And the reason I'll say that, so we talked a little bit about some customer examples that we've used at Bravo, and some of these we were doing before everything happened, before everyone ended up doing everything remotely, and we were doing training in a classroom environment. And we had to forcibly move into doing everything remotely, but it actually gave us several opportunities, because what it allowed us to do is to broaden the number of people we were engaging with. Instead of trying to get 20 people or whatever it was in a classroom to talk in front of them. We're now doing webinars. We're now doing Teams meetings and incorporating 40, 60, 80 people. I've done sessions with 150 people and been able to interact with the same number of people remotely and get the same conversations and the same communication out. And it really has not only given them the information on how to use the product, but proven that the products and the solutions in the cloud really do work. So it's been very powerful, and I think this has only accelerated the capabilities and the benefits of a proper adoption and change management. Would you agree, Gino?
Absolutely. One thing to add to there, good job there, Mark, is people through COVID has been forced, right? Has been pushed into using and leveraging tools that they weren't comfortable before, right? A lot of organizations like, how do we collaborate? How do we continue to stay in business and provide the services that we have? So this is the time, right? I know people have been using since March now, April, been using those things, but you want to make sure that you are leveraging, you put in the right habits, right? The right, like Doug was saying, the right proper governance to ensure that we're providing those guardrails to the users and make sure that it makes it easier, not harder. We want to make their life easier, right? With all these technologies and capabilities, there's so much out there that people are probably just diving right in and pushing through. But you have to have a good, it's not too late. If the question is essentially, can we do this now? Absolutely. I know we've been using it a lot. You should consider looking at having a plan for your adoption and change management sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Next question, how do you know which Office 365 application to roll out first, or do you implement them all at once? So my advice, I'm sure Gino and Mark have tons of advice. First and foremost, we cannot be too technology centric, because if we just keep thinking about, should we roll out Yammer? Should we roll out Planner? We can't get stuck on that. That's very IT centric. The challenge with that is there's so much stuff out there. Not only we can't keep up, but our colleagues can't keep up. You got to step back and think about, okay, what are immediate organizational needs today and what are the gaps? And based on that, map it to the technology. And typically here are the three things that organizations should consider. Number one, do we need better organizational engagement? Meaning, as a whole company, do we need to engage and communicate better? So typically a lot of organizations, the way they communicate to the whole company is email blasts and newsletters and what have you. Not engaging, right? So if you need to take that up a notch, Yammer is great for that. Now, if you're thinking, well, we're not that big of an organization and we could do organizational engagement without using Yammer, that's fine. Maybe consider Teams, because Teams allows you to have up to 5,000 people in a team. However, the nature of team is very interactive and collaborative, meaning the purpose of team is not just one-way broadcast or communication, but you go to Teams to do work. So the second point is, once you figure out what you need for organizational communication, the second point is, what do you need to get your job done better as a team, right? So that's where Teams come in, as you've seen already, not just from working on documents, but communication within the team as you work on stuff. Team is the perfect place. The third piece of critical consideration is, okay, how can we streamline and centralize storing of corporate information? And certainly SharePoint is the place to be. Think of SharePoint as that content fabric for the organization. A lot of us are used to using SharePoint for collaboration, but I don't know if you noticed this, in the last 2 years, Microsoft hasn't used the word collaboration in SharePoint in one sentence. SharePoint is the content service platform. It's where all the content restores, from documents to forms to a list, whereas Teams is where you do the work, where you collaborate. And then based on that context, then you look at the technology. Okay, so what do we need to support that? That's how you roll it out. I also advise that if we can move away from the typical IT mindset, let's move email first, Exchange. Once Exchange is done, let's do file share. Let's move to OneDrive. I mean, you could do that, but in parallel, start thinking about how do you support the business right away with new workloads like Teams and Yammer, which traditionally you've never had. And lastly, we have a full-blown ebook on when to use what. My colleague will share it in the chat, so it gives you more guidance and context as well. Gino, Mark, any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
yep, I have a couple things. Go ahead, Gino.
Sorry, Mark, just real quick, is just to emphasize you don't let technology drive, right? The question is which tool or application you want. Don't let technology drive your strategy. It really is about the mission. If you look at the triangle, and in the middle we have people and mission, right? And making sure that you focus on that, and then you cater the technology right behind it.
Yep. Thanks, Gino. You almost took the words out of my mouth. We don't want to deploy your tools product centric. Think process centric. What is it that you need to do, and how do you go about doing that? We actually like to give our job aids and our training, our in-person training or our virtual training in two ways. Teach people how to use the products, but more importantly, teach them how the products work together. Teach them how to wrap it all to really solve the problems that you're having. Go back to those metrics. What are the problems we have? How do we use the products to meet those needs?
Absolutely.
One more question there, Dux.
Yeah, let's take one question, and then we'll turn it back to you, Gino and Mark. Is MyHub? It's kind of like an internet homepage in SharePoint, and can those SharePoint sites and content be migrated to MyHub? Actually, it's not. It's a totally different thing. Think of it as an app that aggregates your teams and aggregates all the SharePoint sites you have. So it's not, you don't really migrate these workspaces into MyHub, but MyHub gives you that one-stop shop, show you all workspaces. We're happy to show you in more detailed demo. Hit us up, and we can definitely walk you through, or you can even download it and start using it. So with that, Gino, Mark, what's the special offer you're giving away? Food. It looks
all right. Free food, essentially. Everybody loves food, right? So, we're offering people, there's a link at the bottom, it's BravoCG/3ways ACM, so 3 ways adoption and change management. If you sign up for a free adoption and change management assessment, you'll be part of the raffle to potentially win $100 in Grubhub or DoorDash. So please take advantage of that. I think, like I said, it's a free, allow us to go in, talk to you guys, understand your environment, provide you some guidance on where you need to go within your organization and how you can leverage the tools to fit within your mission and your goals, at the end of the day. So super excited.
Fantastic. Well, with that, again, thank you. We're very grateful for everybody joining us in this webinar. I hope you found it beneficial. Make sure you take advantage of this wonderful offer. And if you have any other questions, feel free to connect with us. I'm sure you'll find the three of us on LinkedIn, or again, go to Bravo's website, bravocg.com, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to support your organization to meet your mission with the Microsoft 365 platform. So with that, thanks, Gino. Thanks, Mark, for jumping on this webinar, and we look forward to having you back in our next webinars. Bye.
Absolutely. Thanks, Doc. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.